All these decades, I've been ridiculed and ridiculed for saying that human society is being manipulated by a non-human force. Laugh, what? I thought they'd never stop. And now, this week, we've had hearings on Capitol Hill where witnesses from the military have come along and said, oh, it looks like we're being visited by a non-human force. And the media have been all over it. Same media that just laughed and ridiculed and dismissed. And I haven't looked that closely, but I don't see an apology anywhere, not just to me, but for all those other people going way, way back who've been trying to show people that actually there's something going on in terms of craft that, on the face of it, is beyond anything that humans have. I say on the face of it, I'll come to that. So I should be sitting here really saying, I told you so, I told you, but I'm not, because what's happening is a monumental scam with the ultimate goal of using it as an excuse to transform human society. Now, do aliens exist? Aliens, as they're called. Well, of course they do. But they're not coming. The Martians are coming. No, they're not coming. They've been here for eons, manipulating human society through a global secret society network that I call the global cult. I wrote a book in the late 90s, came out, I think, 1998, called The Biggest Secret. Secret societies, why are they there at all? To keep secrets. And at the inner core, one of the biggest secrets, in fact, in terms of human manipulation, the biggest secret, is that what we call human society has all along been manipulated from another dimension of reality through this global cult. Now, I remember what it used to be like when you were talking about this stuff. It was all refusal to even listen. It was official denial. It was official, oh, don't be silly. Oh, no, non-human craft, it's a weather balloon. And so it went on, decade after decade after decade. And then, suddenly, in recent times, the approach, the atmosphere, the mood has dramatically changed. The question I'll come to is why? And UFOs, unidentified flying objects, have now morphed into UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena. And we've gone from all those denials, oh, you're mad, you are, to the military releasing footage. So again, the question, why, after that blanket denial, are they now suddenly taking it all very seriously? We have earnest politicians asking earnest questions. Could there be aliens visiting us? Well, I'm sure a lot of them are genuine. They would like to know. But, you know, you can tell a lot by who's doing what. And so we have this guy in America, a senator, Chuck Schumer. When this man's lips move, and I mean every time, the global cult is speaking. So I was very interested to see this headline: Non-Human Intelligence, Schumer proposes stunning new UFO legislation. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, along with a bipartisan group of 5 other senators, introduced extraordinary legislation suggesting that the US government or private contractors may secretly possess recovered UFOs and, quote, biological evidence of living or deceased non-human intelligence. According to the legislation, non-human intelligence is defined as any sentient, intelligent, non-human life form, regardless of nature or ultimate origin, which may be presumed responsible for UFOs. Now, if Chuck Schumer wants to push through legislation on this subject to open the books, then the cult wants to do that. So why? Given the decades-long stigma, this article says, associated with the UFO topic, such stunning language is not included in bipartisan congressional legislation on a mere whim, let alone proposed by the Senate's top lawmaker. No, it's not. It's done because the global cult wants this information out for its own reasons. According to Schumer, the sheer number and variety of UFO-related claims led some in Congress to believe that the US government was concealing important information regarding UAPs over broad periods of time. And then, if Schumer speaks, the cult is speaking. We've had this guy, John Kirby, the National Security Council spokesman. When Kirby speaks, the cult is speaking. UFOs impacting Air Force training, White House spokesman John Kirby says. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby acknowledged during a press conference that unidentified flying objects, UFO, and unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, or anomalous phenomena, are creating difficulties for the U.S. Air Force. Asked if increased sightings of UFOs and UAPs are perceived as a legitimate issue for the Biden administration, Kirby explained that the administration is taking the reported sightings seriously. Ooh, suddenly, it's serious. It's not a joke anymore. Why? Yeah, I mean, he said, we wouldn't have stood up an organization at the Pentagon to analyze and try to collect and coordinate the way these sightings are reported if we didn't take it seriously. No, you've set it up, mate, as part of the scam that's unfolding to give the impression of an alien threat when they've already been here all along, so that you can transform human society, or your masters can. So there's John Kirby. He lies for a living. That's what all these spokesmen do, and spokespeople. And then we come to the notorious cult bloodline, the Mellons that operate out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And a former defense official from the Mellon family, Christopher Mellon, says the U.S. has recovered technology that, quote, did not originate on this earth. Anyone notice the theme here? Mellon said America may have in our possession off-world technology recovered from someone else's space program. The 65-year-old served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence in the Clinton and Bush administrations. All right, I'll take you bloody seriously. You tell the truth, right? In 2020, rather, he admitted he was the secret source who provided the New York Times with the 3 UFO videos it famously published in 2017. And so government officials have apparently disputed this finding of alien craft and bodies, including the Pentagon's Sean Kirkpatrick. But this is what Mellon said just before the hearings.
I've been told that we have recovered technology that did not originate on this earth by officials in the Department of Defense and by former intelligence officials. I've referred some of those officials to the office that's undertaking this investigation. Dave is another one of those individuals. He's decided to go public with his information. So there are credible people, and we have a direct conflict here between what Dr. Kirkpatrick is saying and what these other folks are saying, and Congress is in the middle, and they got to sort it out.
So officialdom wants you to go down the road of aliens visiting the earth. And so we come to these hearings this week on Capitol Hill before a House Oversight Committee. And the 3 witnesses from the military were Ryan Graves. He's a U.S. Navy F-18 pilot, or has been. David Grush, a former high-ranking intelligence officer who originates in Pittsburgh, and the retired Navy commander David Fravor, who witnessed the so-called Tic Tac UFO in 2004. So before I get into what the hell's going on, this is what they said, or some of what they said at the hearings when questioned by the politicians.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet in a controller called merge plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some whitewater off our right side. It's important to note that the weather on this day was as close to perfect as you could ask for off the coast of San Diego. Clear skies, light winds, calm seas, no whitecaps from waves. So the whitewater stood out in the large blue ocean. All 4 of us, because we were in F-18Fs, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look with the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb. We continued down another 270 degrees. We went nose low to where the tic-tac would have been. Our altitude at this point was about 15,000 feet, and the tic-tac was about 12,000. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingmen, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. We immediately turned back to see where the whitewater was at, and it was gone also. So as you started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cat point roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute."
The third witness was Ryan Graves, and this headline, Ryan Graves alleges red square and cubes at UFO hearing. He was testifying before the committee, and when Florida Representative Anna Paulina Luna asked him to detail an alleged event that occurred at the Vandenberg Air Force Base in California in 2003, the former military officer said a large group of contractors with the Boeing company was working at a facility site when they observed a very large 100-yard sided red square approach the base from the ocean and hovered at low altitude over one of the large facilities. This object, he said, remained for 45 seconds or so before darting off over the mountains. He went on to claim that another similar event occurred later in the evening, within 24 hours of the first sighting. So these three witnesses together talked of, quote, mysterious dark cubes floating in the sky, radar on the US military planes being blocked, craft making maneuvers that require G-forces that humans could not survive, at least the technology we know about, and a science, they said, was involved that humans do not understand. Well, at their level of knowledge in their military compartment, they may not understand it, but that doesn't mean there are not other compartments deeper in the rabbit hole that absolutely do understand it. So they also talked about recovering alien craft and bodies, and it all seemed very credible. These are military people and conclusive, but is it? Is it? What is actually going on? And I'm not saying that, these people haven't seen what they claim to have seen. The question is, what's the origin and where is this supposed to lead? And why suddenly it's all, oh yeah, we're going to let you see, when it's the last thing they wanted to do before? Well, there was a Canadian investigative journalist called Serge Monas in the 1990s. And he said he'd uncovered a plan called Project Bluebeam, in which global society would be transformed using the excuse of a fake and staged alien invasion, the alien threat. By 1995 and 1996, Monas said he was being hunted by the police and authorities for involvement in networks of prohibited information. He'd homeschooled his two children, and they were then literally kidnapped by the state, taken into care so they'd have a public education, public programming. And Monas died of a heart attack at his home in December 1996, aged just 51. And it happened the day after he was arrested and spent the previous night in jail. Now, I've heard from other sources the same thing and a similar plan. And I've been waiting for this alien card to be played ever since. It would seem I have to wait no longer. Which brings me to this story, again, which I heard about a long, long time ago. The hoax alien invasion, how Werner von Braun revealed NASA's plan to weaponize space. Now, von Braun was a German and American aerospace engineer and space architect. He was a member of the Nazi Party and involved in the SS, as well as a leading figure in the development of rocket technology in Nazi Germany. He was one of the prime people who helped to design and co-develop the V2 rocket, which did so much damage in World War II in London. And after that, because the cult, I keep saying it, has no borders, von Braun and 1,600 other scientists and mind manipulators were taken from Europe, from Germany, into the United States to continue their work. They set up NASA, and von Braun was involved in very much centrally involved, the chief architect of the Saturn V launch vehicle that propelled the Apollo spacecraft to the moon, or so they tell us anyway. So von Braun was someone seriously on the inside. And so we come to Dr. Carol Rosin, who was the first woman corporate manager of Fairchild Industries and was the aide and spokesperson for Werner von Braun in the last years of his life. Now, she also founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space in Washington, D.C., and has testified before Congress on many occasions about space-based weapons. So, what she said, and has been saying for many, many years, is that von Braun revealed to her a plan to justify weapons in space, based in space. And these weapons would be justified by hoaxing an extraterrestrial threat. And she said she was present at meetings in the 1970s when the scenario for the Gulf War of the 1990s was planned. How many times have I said over the decades, these major society-changing events are not random. They are planned and carefully calculated to achieve a particular end. So Dr. Rosin said that von Braun told her of a series of events that would happen, all manipulated, all hoaxes, that would culminate with the alien threat.
And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. A lie. I think I was too naive to know at that time the seriousness of the nature of the spin that was being put on the system. And now the pieces are starting to fall into place. We're building a space-based weapon system based on a premise that is a lie, a spin. And Werner von Braun was trying to hint that to me back in the early 70s and right up until the moment when he died in 1977.
And of course, it's not just weapons in space that you can justify if you sell the idea of an alien threat. You can transform society in so many other ways. the world is not like people think it is. It's not like people are told it is. And one of the greatest diseases of the human psyche is naivety. That those in authority have your best interests at heart and don't want to lie to you, so you'll perceive events the way they want, and you will behave in relation to those events the way they want. So, like I say, I'm not saying that everybody in this arena, suddenly the aliens are here, are knowingly lying. I'm not saying that that some of them, probably many of them, have not seen what they claim to have seen. My question is, A, why is it all being allowed to come out now? And B, what other levels of the compartmentalized structure know far more than those lower down who are coming out and making this public too, has been manipulating human society all along through this global cult of secret societies, which is fiercely compartmentalized, so only a few actually know the full truth of what's going on. And we shouldn't also kid ourselves that the limit, the apparent limit of human technology and potential is what we see. That's why you've got people, from the military who only see one level of it. They're flying, they think the cutting edge of technology. And they say, oh, no, this could not possibly be anything but out of the bounds of what humans can do and what humans can create and what humans know. No, out of the bounds of what the vast majority of society, including most of the military, are allowed to think is the limit of possibility. So when I was traveling around America in the 1990s, or when I started to anyway, I met loads of whistleblowers from the industrial military intelligence complex who told me about what we call alien craft being flown by humans, being kept in the secret bases, the absolutely beyond top secret bases around America. And so when someone looks up and they see this flying saucer craft, they say, oh, it's the aliens. Well, not necessarily. If you compartmentalize technological knowledge from the public and hoard it in the secret bases, then when you fly them around, they think alien. And so not necessarily is it true that these craft have to be of non-human origin. And we shouldn't forget also that this cult, as it plays out in the public arena, just off the public arena, is actually being driven by the military. So, when you become president of the United States, there's enormous amounts of information you're never allowed to see by the military. And because it's the military, compartmentalization of knowledge becomes a cinch, a doddle. You're only allowed to know what you need to know to do your job. And so it's not surprising that it's coming out that the military, modern ultimately, but the military that was orchestrating the whole Kojab rollout, the military is where it's coming from. And the military is what is behind this alien threat hoax we're now seeing unfold. Imagine what you could justify in transforming human society if you could convince people they were under threat from an alien force. Almost anything you could justify. And that is what this is all about. And it's absolutely vital that people do not believe anything authority tells them until it is solid gold proven fact. And that includes not following and believing in these billionaire people who are put now on pedestals to lead us where? To lead us into a dystopia.